go see a therapist, stop using your friends, and you not getting no help, because you're draining them. And so a lot of times what happens is people just go to their family and their friends and they just drain them, telling them all their issues, but they're not willing to actually get any kind of help or do anything. They're not trying to take any advice. They just want to tell you all, they just want to lay on your couch and tell you all they
back again. He's done. Back again. He's done miracles. Back again. He's done miracles on me.
Out of a good majority of the people that I've talked to, just so happen to be Black, within our community, that is the answer you'll get. I'm very self-aware. I can take care of myself. I can read the books. I can, whatever it may be, I can observe if I need to those points in time. I was the guy who would go ahead, and that's exactly what happened in that scenario. You blow out your ACL, everything else is going on, blah, blah, blah. Only a couple of people knew I was getting divorced. Only a couple of people knew I was getting my ACL had gotten blown out. Only a couple of people knew that I was laying in bed all day watching the Kardashians. Like, only a couple of people knew that stuff. Majority of the people that I knew at that point in time, like, their lives went on. And I didn't try to interject into that at all. I went into my own little world and sat in my own bubble and thought, okay, I'm gonna just take care of this stuff myself. I'm gonna deal with it myself. I'm gonna do this, that, and the third myself. And then conversation with Marcus, all that stuff. Fine, I'm gonna go ahead, call up the VA. Obviously, being angry all the time ain't the thing to be doing. So fine. Then you go ahead and you talk to a counselor that actually cares what's going on with you, actually has the education to see certain things and the vision to see certain things that you don't see. Because regardless of how self-aware I might think I am, there are little dark spaces that are within me that I know I can't see. And I know I wouldn't have seen some of these spaces if the counselor wasn't looking at me, hearing me say stuff, asking me certain questions, re-asking the certain question a different way, asking this question, that question, asking the question again in another way, asking this, that, and the third, blah, blah, writing stuff down. Okay, you said this, you said that, you said these, those, whatever. A plus BX equals CX D049. You know what? You might have something going on. We need to talk about this right here. Like, that's just what it is. I'm not going to look at it and see all of that stuff from what I'm saying. From me saying all this stuff, I'm a very self-aware, educated young Black man. Like, at that point in time, moving up in my management job, all that stuff, whatever. Like, I'm advancing now because I've obviously gotten over this depression that I was in, right? So I can buy another gun. I can do this, that, and the third. I can do a bunch of other stuff. But the stuff that she was revealing, that she was seeing within me after I started telling her stuff, were things that I did not see. And then the questions that she was asking me were leading me to see things not actually in the sessions, but after I'd be like driving home. How do you react when this happens? How do you react when that happens? Why are you reacting that way? Write it down so we can talk about it next time. Literally, this happens, that situation happens when you're at home and you kind of feel like, stuff is moving faster than it actually is. Like, you might see something out of the corner of your eye. Write it down so you can go ahead and talk to me about that when we go ahead and we have the next session. Like, literally, it's because this individual, when they're educated the right way, when they actually care and they put those two things together, and then they're actually able to pay attention and ask you the right questions, but in the right way, develop a relationship with you so you can trust them. And then, hey, these are the things that I'm seeing within you. You may not see them yourself, but these are the things that I'm seeing. So let's take care of these. You may be self-aware over here, but this dark corner you got over here, you didn't want to open this box, but now I've gotten a glimpse inside and I want to open it all the way. So let's do that. So my whole point in saying all of that, long story less long, I was wondering, I didn't want to say it first. I was wondering what RJ was going to say, and I was wondering what Marcus was going to say, and it just really just did interest me that both of them said exactly the same thing that I said. My mother said, like literally, I'm good, I'm self-aware, I'm this. I don't know if I can trust that person. I don't this, that, and the third. I don't know what I'm not averse to it. I'm not averse to it. It's just, why not? Because the same thing I asked her. She said she's not averse. I'm like, cool beans. You've been here since 2016. I ain't seen a counseling session yet. So what's good, Mom? She was like, I love you. That's why I bring it up. If I didn't love you, I'd just let you walk around and never say anything to you about it, you know? So it's just interesting. So.
Ooh. Come on, Doc, because she over here shaking in the seat and stuff.
It's also supposed to be sitting forever. No, I mean, I think Shannon hit the nail on the head, right? So bibliotherapy is great. There's plenty of books that I read. There's books. I use bibliotherapy with the younger kids because they can understand it through a book. But I think the biggest barrier, especially for our community and then for men within our community, is the trust piece, right? And so like every single profession, absolutely, like you have your good people and your bad people. And I tell people all the time, you can fire your therapist if you meet with someone one time and the vibe's not there, and or you think they don't understand you or they don't get it or they can't get it, then you can walk away. That doesn't mean there's not someone out there that will understand that. And a good provider, a good psychologist, a good master's level clinician, whatever, will sit there and build rapport with you to build that trust before they sit there and say, unpack your life, tell me everything. And that's not the goal, right? Obviously, the goal eventually is to get you to heal whatever it is you want to heal, but you have to have someone trust you. And on top of that, I think the biggest barrier, I think the last time I looked, I'm like the 1%, like female, Black, and the psychologist, right? There's not a lot of people in the field that look like us, that have shared experiences, that understand us, right? And so to sit there and then be able to open up to somebody who has a completely drastic life experience from you is also difficult, because the way that they then address you and address your issues and address the things that you're bringing to them, they don't resonate, they don't fit. And then people give up and walk away. And there's that fear of, well, they're not going to understand me, and I'm trying not to be racist. You're so-and-so from, North Dakota, 2-parent household, affluent, et cetera, like you're not going to understand me from St. Louis with this, that, and the third, right? And I think we have to take, or from Miami, or from Compton. Pomona.
I was like, wait a minute, we ain't from Compton.
I know, I changed it. Pomona, okay, chill. But anyways, like, I'm just saying, right, like a lot of it in the community is the barrier, right? It's that trust piece, and how do we jump over that hump? And like, you're allowed to say like, okay, I tried it, I don't like you. That doesn't mean you won't find someone you won't. Now, is that tedious? Yes. But like, if you had cancer and you didn't like your first doctor, you're going to go figure it out, right? You're just not going to read books on cancer that will help you feel better. Like, you're going to read it, and then
you're going to read it.
You're going to read it, yes, but you're also going to seek a doctor, and you're going to seek a second opinion and a third opinion. You're not just going to stick and not go see a physician at all. As even with the faces he's making, he's going to go find a doctor. But
I'm just not in a space in life right now that I'm looking to, and this is just personal. Because
I wasn't trying to put it on you.
I'm making it personal.
I was just saying.
That's why I said this is personal. Okay. I'm not trying on doctors right now. Like I'm just not. I'm not. That's why I said I'm not opposed to knowing that I'm going to have a conversation with a therapist one day. I'm not resistant to that. I just know in the space that I'm in right now, I'm not looking to build rapport and trust with a new person, while I am having this excavation work happening in my life. And I do have a couple of people that I can talk to that are helping me uncover some things and pointing me in directions. Adding someone to that mix and then being like, I don't even really like them. I don't want to taint the water of it. This is also why I'm not married right now. Why? Because I don't personally want, I'm like, yo, I pray to God that like I do this right the first time. I pray to God I do this right the first time. So I'm going to do the pre-work for me right now. And that's the season I'm in. That's allowing me to be honest with myself. And that there are times where I'm still the 9-year-old Marcus that has a hurt that I can understand. And once I'm like, because 3 years ago, I wasn't even willing to recognize that I was still experiencing a trauma from 9 years old that was impacting me at 39. Like I wasn't even, so there was no way in hell I was telling a therapist that. Because I was in denial of it myself. Like I would be like, yo, who the hell are you, Kyle? We ain't got nothing to talk about. And what you mean?
Why is it Kyle?
She said South Dakota, so it just was perfect. But honestly, I wouldn't have told Trayvon that either. Yo, I'd have been like, yo, I don't know you. What you mean? You from St. Louis? Nobody trusts nobody from St. Louis. I'm just playing. But it's been cool though to finally be in a space where I'm able and willing to be vulnerable with myself, to know that that's something I'm working towards. And when I get there, I'm going to be able to have real, open, honest conversations. And right now I use like Turn Up Tuesday as an outlet for that, to be like, damn, like I've had revelations during those talks, just basically with myself, that I was like, damn, I'm going to talk to somebody about this. Like, but I didn't know to talk about it before because it had been suppressed and pushed under the rug for so long that I wouldn't have even, I would have been sitting on somebody's couch and telling them surface level shit because I didn't want to talk about anything else, not even realizing that there was more to uncover. So having friends like Song and Doc and Shannon and King, like in my life, that are like, yo, I went to therapy and I found this, like, yo, you might want to be able to talk about that. I'm like, shit, you might be right. Yo, like I'm arming myself with the information that when I do sit down with a therapist, I'm going to have a very real conversation and I'll be transparent, because I also know whether you're the one or not, I'm complete with myself being vulnerable. That's probably, there it is right there. Like, it's not even about trusting someone else. It's whether or not I'm willing to be vulnerable and step into that level of strength and belief in myself.
I love that. And another thing that like I commend you on is that you're actually willing to work on this stuff. Even if you're not going to go to therapy right now at this time, you have friends that you're willing to, like King said, allow them to hold you accountable when they see things in you, and you're willing to work on those things versus, you know, going to your friends. I remember Shannon did a video about this when he was saying, go to counseling, go see a therapist, stop using your friends, and you not getting no help, you know, because you're draining them. And so a lot of times what happens is people just go to their family and their friends and they just drain them, telling them all their issues, but they're not willing to actually get any kind of help or do anything. They're not trying to take any advice. They just want to tell you all, they just want to lay on your couch and tell you all their issues, but not, and then they get up and then now they poured all this out on you. Go ahead, King. What? He's like, he gave me the church finger.
Let me slide through real quick. I just want this real quick thing, because what is actually worse? The route of me and Marcus to go read a book and actually work on something to improve ourselves, or the person that goes to counseling and goes to a therapist but never actually works on nothing but just goes to go. So which one?
I would say both, because if you read the book and you don't take anything from it and don't interpret it, then
people in the book is applying it. I'm saying the person who's actually going to a therapist.
But that would be the same thing. Like if you're just going to a therapist and you're not being vulnerable, you're not having honest conversations, and you're not going deep, it's just like reading a book and not applying the information. It's the same, right? And so if you're going to go to therapy, you need to be vulnerable. Like, and if you're not going to do that and you're not going to be honest, and or when the counselor turns around and asks you another question and reframes and really sits there and makes you like think about what you said, and have you rethink about it in a different light, then you're wasting your time and their time, right? Same way if you read a book just to read a book, but then can't take anything from the book, can't talk about the book, can't apply the book, you just wasted your whole life reading the book for no reason. It's the same, like they're both the same. Like there's no better or worse. It's just if you're not doing the work outside of just the action, then it's pointless with anything in life.
So my next thing is to, and this will be the last thing I ask you for now. What are the different, or maybe not, So no, what are the different levels of like actual counseling? Not psychoanalyzing people, but like I know there's like self, and there's like relationships and stuff like that. Like people need to know like there's different aspects of counseling, right?
What do you mean? Like
So-
individual versus couples?
And then there is couples and stuff like. What are the different ones that people?
Oh, I mean, so there's individual, there's couples, there's family, there's more of the inpatient intensive counseling or inpatient person therapy, which is like you can see your therapist up to 4 times a week if you're doing like an IOP. I was trying to say the acronym and the word at the same time. Sorry. That's 4 times a week. You can do group therapy. There's different group therapies. So DBT skills group, which is like dialectical behavior. It's not important what the acronym stands for, but anyways, like those are more intense. Those tend to be, several days a week. Some people do those groups on top of individual counseling. That's for more kind of like, borderline personality, substance use, schizophrenia, bipolar diagnoses. But so there's levels. You can see a counselor once every 2 weeks for individual therapy. You can see one every week, or you can do more intense. You can do couples, you can do family. I will say though, if you're going to do, unless you're in a super rural area and there's only one provider for X amount of square miles, if you're doing couples and then you want to do individual, don't see the same person that you're going to see for that couples, because you want that couple counselor to see each of you objectively versus seeing you also individually. Like that's not. And then one person will always feel slighted then also in that couple dynamic if that person's seeing them outside too. So
I think also something, if you could just like briefly explain, because I think there's a misconception that people think, well, if I go to counseling, they're going to put me on medication. And that's why they don't want to go to counseling. And that's not the case in most cases. So.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to go to psychiatrist, then 9 out of 10 times, yes, you're going to get put on medication, because that's mainly what that profession is. It's to assess and then provide and prescribe, right? But if you're going to therapy, you don't necessarily have to. The next step is not necessarily medication. Some people choose, 3, 4, 5 sessions in that maybe they need something extra, and then you also see a psychiatrist on top of that and get prescribed medication, right? Or some people, I've made a decision, it's very rarely because I'm not a big medication pusher, but I've had a couple of sessions. I'm like, hey, maybe a 5 milligram dose of this and this may help you kind of balance out just a little bit so that you can implement the therapy techniques until you can get the ball rolling, right? It just really depends. But no, it's not a automatic, you're in therapy and then you're prescribed medication.
I don't know anything about the medication conversation, but I have a question for you, Doc. Have you ever had a therapy session, like spent time with a counselor or a therapist for you personally?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like for several reasons. One, like my own life, right? But for 2, I think it's really hard for me to be a psychologist and never have put myself in that other position, right? And so like, how can I sit there and be the best provider and show up for whoever comes and sits in my office if I don't know what it feels like to sit on the other end, to sit there, to be vulnerable, to have someone else try to hold space for me and really trust them to work through it and give me the tools that I need? Because it is very different when you're on the other side. And it's very easy to sit there on a high horse in like the doctor position and say ABC, XYZ versus take into account like someone may be scared as hell to sit there and tell you, and that's the first person they've ever opened up to. And so, and on top of that, I will add, like, I do mostly trauma work. So having a therapist for myself is beneficial because I hold space 8-9 hours a day with intense trauma for other people. Like that sits with you. There's things that sit with you, especially working with kids. And so being able to kind of let that go and not hold on to it or attach it to my own traumas. So.
Wow, that's real. That's what's up.
And I want to say therapy is not a lifelong thing. Like the other misconception and stereotype is that if you go to therapy, like you're in it forever. Like this is not Freud era. Like you're not sitting on someone's couch doing psychoanalysis for 18 years. Like You know, you go for, 3-4 months, and then you're like, if you feel better and the clinician agrees, you can discharge, like, and or even if they don't agree, you can terminate if you're ready. But it's not you can always like terminate and then discharge and come back. Like, it's never you just have to stay in it because you're in it forever.
Right. I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to mention that earlier, but got sidetracked. But yeah, when I went through my own therapy, I did it for about a year, and it started out like twice a week. And then progressively, as I started doing better, then I went less and less to the point where I got to the place where my therapist was like, I don't think you need to come anymore. You seem to be managing on your own. And so call me if you need any help. Don't give me that face. Okay. But she was like, call me if you need any help and you want to schedule any appointments and stuff. But I started learning my own triggers and different things like that, and being able to process through my own emotions. And then if I have something that happens and I'm like, hey, I need to talk to you. Or I might call her and be like, I need to talk to you. I need to process through this thought. Hey, listen, and have a friend like this. I don't sit there for hours though. So, but you don't have to stay in therapy forever. It's, you go through different seasons in your life, and in order to get through that season, sometimes you need to have that person. My therapist helped me through a really tough season in my life, like miscarrying a child, and then going through an abusive relationship, going through a divorce, all of that stuff. It was just like weighing on me because I thought, strong people, I just kind of suppressed it. And I was like, I'm gonna figure it out. And that didn't work for me. And then I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to therapy. And I worked through those things so that I can get to a place where I'm able to release all of those things. I still remember them, obviously, but I can release that. I'm not holding on to that stuff anymore. And so, yeah, but I don't have to go anymore, And
I think
subscribe so you don't miss next week's video.
How do you think for men, especially men within the Black community, how can we start to change the narrative? How do each of us do our part to make the conversations more open, to make the spaces more safe, to make the spaces more vulnerable, for men to be able to say, hey, like, you know what, today I decided I didn't want to wake up today, to be able to talk to people so they're not suffering in silence anymore, even if it's not as extreme as necessarily, wanting to kill themselves.